Alrighty. Well, hello to all of you. Thank you for joining me here virtually. I'm down in San Diego. I'm not too far probably from most of you. Um, it's really nice that we get to do this live. I encourage you to type a question here in the chat. The only dumb questions are the ones you don't ask. So please ask away. The title today is called How to Win the Med School Interview. And I want to show you how to prepare, how to like what to expect, and then how to do your best. So here are the slides I'm going to be using. I thought that I would start by saying that basically you have 2 minutes to make a good first impression. So when you first meet somebody, they make up their mind about you very, very quickly, and then the rest of the time that they're talking to you is spent with essentially confirming or denying their initial impression. So you want to show who you are right away. You'll notice I jumped right into this presentation today because I wanted you to see that, hey, this is going to be useful. There's two psychological concepts that go along with this 2-minute idea. The first is called thin slicing. From a small sample size, human beings make up their mind about whether they like someone. This dates back to our days on the savannah where we had to determine friend or foe very, very quickly. And you'll notice that when you first meet somebody who's maybe a little creepy, you know right away without knowing why. And it's the same basic thing at work with interviewing. They decide whether or not they like you very fast. And from all kinds of different subtle cues that you're giving off. Then the second thing is called confirmation bias, which if you've taken intro psych, you know that it's that people are more likely to notice evidence that supports their judgment and their position than evidence that contradicts it. So you want to win the first 2 minutes. How do you do that? Well, number one, you want to open like a doctor. If this is an in-person interview, it's about body language, it's about handshakes, it's about a professional introduction. If it's a virtual one, you want to think like, gosh, how would a doctor introduce themselves? And they would do it with, again, energy, professionalism, it's like you on your best day. So a good smile. If it's virtual, which the majority of interviews these days are, you need to make sure that your camera and your background sends the right message too. You may not realize that you're sending unprofessional signals because you haven't thought about how you look on camera or what you're doing. Make sure there's a good professional greeting. Use formal introductions where possible, not "Hey y'all," whatever. And then finally, start the conversation strong. You don't have to just sort of sit there and wait for them to ask a question. You can say, "Hey, I've got a question for you off the top," or whatever you want to do, however you want to start it. But start it on a positive note. And remember, you get to interview for med school. It's not just that you have to. Alrighty. So I am Rob Humbracht. I have been in the test prep and admissions space for 26 years. Oh my gosh. I don't feel that old, but really I've been doing this a long, long time. I started teaching test prep from the Princeton Review. My students started asking me for help with their application essays, and my boss kicked me out. That was back in 2007. And since then, Passport has helped, it was like 2,800 students from different parts of the world. We're mostly California driven, California based. We started really honing in on our students applying to medical school when we started the blog Savvy Pre-Med in 2014. You can still read great articles, helpful advice on getting into med school from there. It's all free. There's no advertising even. As the primary founder and author of that, a lot of it's my brain translated onto paper. But I hope that's a good resource for you. During the pandemic, I started an online shadowing company called Heal Clinical Education Network. It still exists. If you're having trouble finding shadowing remotely, it's still a great option for many kids. It's tended to be more people from rural areas, younger students, people from other countries that have found it most useful lately. So that's really interesting. If you go to UCLA, you probably have adequate access to plenty of shadowing and other clinical opportunities, though not always. And then finally, I also am the CEO of a company called RealDX. RealDX produces real patient video cases for medical students and PA students and NP students. And so I might refer to some of these different organizations with opportunities that I think you might take advantage of. But I represent all of them in various capacities. All right. Basically, I want you to get that I've been doing this a long time, and I've got just a lot of wisdom from over the years of working with students. Okay, here's what we're doing today. we've talked about winning the first 2 minutes. I want to say that you are cordially invited to a couple things. First, if you want to download a really wonderful PDF of a pre-med application planner, that's the first bullet point when you go to this website. Second is if you'd like to book a free advising session with Passport Admissions. This is an hour-long session. It's free. It's personal to you. Usually people use it as a what are my chances kind of meeting, which can be really hard to get straight information about. But basically you say, okay, here's my resume, here's my GPA, here's my MCAT if you have it. And we say, all right, here are the averages for our students that have gotten into certain schools. Here's what we recommend for you moving forward. Whether or not that ends up being like that you need help with the application itself. It's just a helpful advising meeting. So I encourage you all to take advantage of that. And then finally, if you want to join the newsletter that I help write called Setting the Curve, it's there. Let me quickly put this into the chat. Here is the URL for that form. Alrighty. While I'm thinking about it on this URL, and I'm only going to mention RealDX one more time this presentation, this time, which is there's an internship open at RealDX. So it's a pre-med internship. It is free. It's fully remote. You'd be joining at least 3, maybe 4 UCLA colleagues in this internship. Basically, you get to help produce real patient cases and work on the cases with doctors, other medical professionals. It's a competitive application process. If you would like to either fill out the application or submit a letter of interest, you can do that here. So it's only about 40% of people that apply get accepted for the internship, but it can be a great way to enhance your credentials, both clinically and in other aspects of your med school application. But it's a really great a resource, and we really work hard to make it rewarding for students. Yeah, in fact, it's being run by a UCLA alum. I should have remembered that. That should have been the lead. Anyway, a lot of UCLA grads in this sucker. So I hope you all will take advantage of that opportunity. Okay. All right, back to the presentation at hand. Let's talk about what med school application timeline is going to look like. Here we go. 1 second. No, not what I wanted. That's what I want. Okay. If you get an interview to medical school, congratulations, because that means that you are an acceptable candidate. That is not everybody who applies to medical school. Not everybody gets an interview. You know, of the overall applicant pool, we're talking about 40% get accepted somewhere. And so to get accepted somewhere, it generally takes about 3-ish interview invites. So the acceptance, the interview invite rate of a given medical school is roughly 10% of the people who apply there. You can see some schools are much lower than that. Some schools are a little higher than that. We did leave out a specific in-state school that is not relevant to this particular one. But basically, if you get interviewed, it means they like you. Maybe they have a concern about your application, but it's not such a large concern that they're that's going to keep them from accepting you. So you are an acceptable candidate. If it's at an in-state school, there's going to be a particular bias for in-state students. So by and large, in-state or public medical schools prefer in-state students. So it can be particularly good news if you get an interview at an in-state school. I also wanted to say that the interview season is long. So for students who submitted their application this cycle, generally you submit in May. Interview invites start coming out in July or August of 2026, and they go all the way to the following May 2027. So it's a 10-month process. Now, the interviews at the very end of the cycle are less likely to produce an acceptance and are more likely to produce a spot for you on the wait list. But still, it's never over till it's over, and it can often be uncertain until May, June, July of next year. All right. schools start sending it out in July, August, September, October, November, December. You see some schools wait until December, January to send out their first interview invites, but most of them send out invites in August. There is some correlation to stronger candidates or candidates who fit a specific need for the medical school getting interview invites earlier, but not totally. You can be a great candidate and not get your first interview invite until November. So knowing when exactly you will get accepted is not this exactly, like when you'll get your first interview invite. But this is when they start going out. Okay. 128 of the 160 or so MD schools do virtual interviews. Some offer both. Some say in-person only. Some we didn't have accurate data for, but the vast majority are virtual. If you have the chance to go in person, I think it shows a medical school that you are serious about going there. So if your budget and your lifestyle allow, I strongly recommend in-person over virtual. I just think there's so many ways that it'll positively affect your chances of getting in that I think you should take it, even though it means travel, even though it means expense. So if you can, go. If not, join the pack, because a lot of students are doing them all virtually these days. All right. So here's what a typical in-person interview day looks like. Basically, it's a whole day where the interview takes up a small portion of that day. So it's an interview, but it's also information gathering. You're trying to figure out, all right, do I want to go to this school? What are the parts of it that most appeal to me? How can I then talk about that in my actual interview? How can I talk about that in update letters after my interview? So it's not just the interview itself, it's other stuff too. And so typically you'll have one interview in the morning, say, and one interview in the afternoon. If it's a virtual interview, and the point for an in-person interview, and this just generally goes for all parts of the application process, is everyone is submitting an evaluation of you. You might think that lunch with current students is off the record. It is not. So anybody that you meet could potentially weigh in on your application. You need to be professional and friendly in all of your interactions. Do not assume that just because somebody is the greeter at the med school admissions office that they don't have a say. Don't assume just because somebody's a student that you can suddenly lower your guard and talk honestly with them about something unprofessional. No. You're getting judged at every step of the way. All right. There are a couple different types of interviews. So we'll talk about these in turn. The traditional one-on-one interview is still the preferred format for medical schools. Roughly a third of medical schools also offer an MMI. So an MMI is the multiple mini interview. It is interview speed dating. Think a series of 8-ish minute stations where you get a question or a prompt to answer and then some time to answer it. Some schools will do a hybrid of the two, a combination of like a few MMI stations and a more traditional interview. Some schools will do a panel interview. That's becoming increasingly uncommon. A panel is where you are talking and multiple people are listening or answering questions, asking you questions. So panels are just a more efficient way of interviewing multiple candidates or having multiple perspectives on a given interview. And again, sometimes some of our data wasn't perfect on all of this. Okay. So those are the types of interviews. And then there's something called the Kira Talent Interview. So 6 schools will screen you with an AI system that will record you and then watch your video and analyze it and grade it and send that grade to medical schools, who will then decide whether or not to invite you to a traditional interview. So that's also possible that you'll experience during this. So a lot of different variety in the kinds of formats of these interviews, the way you need to come across. There's subtle differences in how to do well in each of those particular settings, but by and large, the advice is more similar than it is different. All right. There's a distinction here that I don't think makes a huge distinction, which is closed file versus open file. So a lot of students stress out about this, like, oh, it's open file. That means the interviewer knows everything about my life. And the answer is no, they don't. Just because they have access to your application does not mean that they remember it from the 15 other ones that they were up late reading the night before. So one of the most annoying things you can say is, as you may have read in my file. No. Don't say that. Just to pretend like any question that they ask you is fair game, and they probably won't know the different things that are in your file. Also, it means that you can tell some of the same stories you've already written about in your primary application and your secondary essays. Yes, it's open file. Your life hasn't changed. You still can use the same evidence and source material and stuff that you use to get that interview at the interview itself. So this is a distinction that a lot of people sweat about. Oh my gosh, it's closed file, or oh my gosh, it's open file. It doesn't really affect how you prepare. All right. What to wear? Conservative, neutral colored suit, collared shirt or blouse, closed toe shoes, minimal accessories or jewelry, neat haircut, and other professional appearance. We in California are much less formal than the rest of the country. So if you're going elsewhere for your interview, remember that it's better to be overdressed than underdressed. Don't wear things that make you stand out. Don't wear anything that's open-toed, anything that's low cut. Obviously, get an iron, learn how to use it. Make sure there's one at the hotel where you're staying the night before. And then, just make sure that everything that you're wearing is professional. You want to come across like the doctor you're going to be. Okay. So let's talk through some common interview questions and how to answer them. One of the things that I think students get a little over in their head about is trying to craft the perfect answer to a given question. And there is no perfect answer, but I think it can really help to understand why med schools ask certain questions so that then you know, okay, my answer has to basically do this. So the first question that you're going to get, and you're going to get this at almost every interview, is tell me about yourself. So like, if you think about why do they ask this question? I mean, most people start rambling about their college career and their major and why medicine. You'll get plenty of chances to talk about why medicine. This question is about talking about something else. So why do they ask it? Because they don't want to have to go to their list of questions to start asking from those. They genuinely want to have a conversation about something interesting about you. So the strategy is start with the normal details like, my name is, I'm majoring in this, I grew up in this hometown, and then go to something like, something that most people don't know about me is, or the most fun I've had this past year was when, and fill in the gaps. I love giving this example, but this almost always works. The students that I've worked with who are certified to scuba dive and have had that opportunity and mention that in their med school interviews often end up spending a long part of their introductory section of their med school interview talking about scuba diving. And it makes the interviewer like you. So if you're trying to win the first 2 minutes, that's a great detail to drop. All right, next question. What do you like to do for fun? Why do they ask this question? Well, they're wondering, are you normal? So the strategy is to add the phrase with my friends to whatever you say. What do you like to do for fun? I like to go hiking with my friends. What do you like to do for fun? I'm a big surfer. I like to go surfing with my friends. What do you like to do for fun? I like to bake for my friends. So you get the idea. You add this phrase with my friends, and it makes it seem like you're more social than perhaps even you are. But that's the way to answer that question. It's okay to have hobbies. Just make sure they're not the, adolescent male hobbies. You know what I mean? Things like Dungeons and Dragons or things that seem more like, they won't translate well to you being a doctor. All right. Question, why should we accept you? This is a tough one. Sometimes it's phrased more poignantly like, hey, we get 10 applicants for every spot in our incoming class. Why should we accept you? So their question really is getting at, do you know your own strengths? That's why they ask it. And you don't have to suddenly become a different person. Listen, they've already invited you to the interview. That means you have strengths and they like you. So just make sure that you talk through your greatest hits. So you should know off the top of your head, I think my strongest points as an applicant are this, this, and this. Use that to answer that question. If you don't know, talk to a great advisor. They can help reflect to you where you stand out among the applicant pool. That is something that's hard to know yourself because you probably don't know all the diversity of the applicant pool and where certain students stand versus where you stand. Okay. If you have something bad in your application, they might ask you to explain it. They might either search broadly like, do you have any weaknesses you want to explain? Or they might say, why'd you do so poorly on that section of the MCAT? That can really happen. So why would they ask you this question? They're trying to see if you're defensive. Or have you honestly acknowledged the thing and learned from it? Because again, you got the interview. That means that the thing that has happened to you is not so debilitating that you're not acceptable. Now comes the part where can you talk about it without crying? Can you talk about it can you talk about it without blaming other people? Like, have you owned it and then learned from it? That's what they're really looking for. So do explain, don't apologize. All right. The questions come in. Why medicine? Now, they've already asked you this in your personal statement. Sometimes they've asked you again in your secondary essays. Your letter of recommendation writers are talking about why they think you'd be a good doctor. So why do they ask you again in person when you're sitting there in front of them? Well, basically, it's do they believe you? So they want to hear you say it. I mean, this is the question you're going to be answering for the rest of your life, assuming you get in, of course. And it's just a question of, all right, can you show the emotion that went into this journey? Can you show all of the long nights and hard work and express concisely why this path and no other path is the right path for you? So I think the best way to answer this question is not just one thing. Usually it's a combination of 3 different things. That's not always the case, but that's probably the best catch-all answer to make sure it's why medicine and no other profession in the healthcare field. All right. Another kind of question they're going to ask for you is, hey, do you have any questions for me? And you've just been through the campus tour and gotten the whole thing, and you're just happy to be there. So why would you have questions for them? Well, it's a proxy. They're not asking this question. They're actually asking like, hey, would you choose our school even if you got in somewhere else? So they are testing to see whether you have done your homework. And so doing your homework means having 3 to 5 specific questions that matter to you when evaluating a medical school. So what are the things that you care about from the med school? How could you ask your interviewer that question in a way that doesn't sound critical, but is a question that they could weigh in on? So, there's an annoying version of this question where, like, I saw on your website that you claim that this is the percentage of your acceptance rate. Is that true? No. Try to figure out big picture. What are the things that students struggle with? What are the things that they love about the school? Try to figure out how that maps onto you and your life. I mean, you're going to spend 4 years in this community. What would you need to know to call this place home? And yes, I know your beggars can't be choosers, but let's pretend like you got into multiple schools. How are you going to make that evaluation aside from just, location and tuition? What else would you want to know about your future best friends and maybe your future spouse? Okay. Those are the people that are going to be joining you on this journey. A shocking number of people get married in med school. And so you should have questions for the school about that. All right. Here's another question that you're going to see sometimes in a traditional interview, all the time in an MMI, which is ethics questions. So these would be questions about topics of the day. Things like, should people be able to sell their organs on the black market? Or, should doctors be able to assist with someone who wants to commit suicide? Those kinds of questions. These are ethical dilemmas that aren't going away anytime soon. Usually they don't have a right or wrong answer. So why would they ask you this question? Well, basically because they have to. Very few interviewers, unless they're particularly sadistic, enjoy wading through these waters. The admissions committee says you have to ask at least one of these questions, so they will. And so your job is to take a stand, support it well, and get out of that question, because it's the other questions where you're going to really come across better, I think. So pick a side, back it up, and then don't budge. They're going to come up with like, well, what if this? What if this? What if this? And so if you hedge, you're going to seem wishy-washy or like you can't take a side. So anyway, speaking of ethics questions, here are the common ethics topics. So things like abortion or euthanasia and physician-assisted death, who pays for care and who goes without, using AI in diagnosis and treatment, vaccine mandates and vaccine hesitancy, the right to sell your organs. Those kinds of questions are often asked for the ethics situations. Whether to test against the will of the patient. So how do you handle these stations? We think it's helpful to first buy yourself some time. Now, maybe you don't need it. You can just hop on right in. So you don't have to pause in this first step. But gosh, that's a great question. Let me think. That you just bought yourself 15 seconds. No, if you just sort of stare blankly, that's not good. So it's okay. You want to acknowledge, hey, gosh, that is a tough question. And yes, you're right. It's a tough question. So you get yourself a little time to think. After that, you want to explore, on the one hand, this, on the other hand, that. So there's going to be two sides. That's why these questions exist. And so it's just a question of, can you see both sides? Or some of the tension that's involved there. Then you want to offer your position based on an ethical rationale. So because I believe X, I think my position would be this. And then listen, because they're going to have some follow on, but don't budge from your original side. Okay, so if you want to learn more about these, go to procon.org. It's now owned by Encyclopedia Britannica, but you can go do deep dives into some of these topics, understand the ethical underpinnings of them, the arguments on both sides. It's a nonpartisan free resource, and it's a great way to get up to speed on the most important topics that you're going to face. Okay. By the way, I want to again suggest, if you all have any questions, throw them in the chat. I haven't seen anybody come through, but I'm happy to. I know I'm talking fast and moving fast. There's a lot to cover. This is being recorded. You can slow me down later. I don't know, listen to it in slow-mo, hear me again. But I just want to make sure that your questions get answered. So if you would like to put those in the chat, feel free. All right. Let's see here. So let's talk about the MMI. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to show you what an MMI station looks like. Let's see if this will come through. So this is from a real med school's MMI. And you will get this, if it's in person, you'll get this before you enter the room. If it's a video, like a virtual interview, usually you'll get 2 minutes to review this and take notes. So that's one piece of advice, is it's okay to write some stuff down as you're prepping this. Here's the situation that we have on our slide. It says you live in an apartment complex with a state-of-the-art facility available to the tenants. The door to the fitness facility is locked with a numerical keypad to prevent non-tenants from using the facility. Your best friend from childhood, a single mother, asks for your code so that she can get back into shape. What do you do? Well, let's apply that ethics approach. So here, because it's an MMI, you don't need to say, gosh, that's a good question. No. You have your 2 minutes. Here's your chance to think it through. You want to think, on the one hand, this, and on the other hand, that. So does anybody want to take a stab at what the ethical tension is here? Feel free to throw that in the chat. What are we watching here? Like, what are the different pieces of this? Who has a stake in this situation? Mary, that's great. Upholding the rules of the apartment versus helping your friend better her health. Anybody else want to take a stab? I like how pithy that is. Well done, Mary. All right. As you all are thinking this through, you're going to have to take a position on what you would do. And it can be helpful to, especially in the MMI, to think through a couple of sub-questions to this. So one of the sub-questions is, what don't we know? So we know that we live in an apartment complex with a state-of-the-art facility available to the tenants. We know that our friend is a single mother. Do we know whether she has access to another fitness facility? No. Do we know whether she's poor or can't afford a better fitness facility? No. Do we know that why she's asking for our code? She just says so that she can get back into shape. Like, no. Do we know what the rules say is and isn't allowed? Like, do we know whether we can greet her at the door? Is that allowed? Do we know, like, there's different things to think through, like, gosh, what don't we know? And so you'll quickly notice that you don't know much more than you do. So you don't want to leap to a conclusion that's not supported by the card. Also, explaining what you don't know can be like a minute of your answer and make you sound very intelligent. Here's what we don't know. And so that's really helpful. The other thing to think through would be, all right, let's say that you're a rule-abiding apartment dweller and you don't want to break the rules of the apartment. Okay, how else could you solve the problem of helping your friend? So maybe you could meet together for training sessions. Maybe you could subsidize her membership at another gym. Maybe you could, like, there's different ideas for how you could solve this problem aside from just the card that's presented. So you have to come through all of this in 2 minutes. That's why it's helpful to say, all right, what's the ethical tension? What don't I know? What are some alternatives? What's my side going to be? So those are the sub questions to ask. All right. Then,
to which myself and other tenants have access to.
Here, let me show you how this starts. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead a little bit. So she enters the room. Here's her evaluator.
Hi. Ms. Hoffmeister?
Hi.
Hi, I'm Pooja Chopra.
Oh, hi, Pooja. My name is Mariana.
Hi, Mariana. It's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Notice the professional introduction. She shakes hands, eye contact, goes by the name that the person tells her to use. So she starts with the professional version. She says it's Marianne. She then says, oh, hi, Marianne, right? So all of that is, I would imagine many of us need to brush up on those skills. All right.
Okay, so how I understand this NER, I'm just going to give a little bit of a recap before I go into how I would approach it.
Okay, this is a great strategy. Start with a recap. The recap can help you get your own footing verbally. If you're feeling nerves, and I promise you will, it can be helpful to say, okay, here's my understanding. And then you can actually ask the interviewer, does that sound right to you? And then the interviewer may or may not chime in, but they generally will be like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So then you're on a roll and you can move on to your situation.
So what I got from when I read it is that I just moved into a new apartment building, or an apartment building that has a state-of-the-art fitness facility to which myself and other tenants have access to with a numerical keypad.
All right, cool. So she states the scenario. So then she says, let's move on forward.
Talk to my friend, and I would ask her why she would want to use my fitness facility. There may be several underlying causes. For instance, it mentioned that she's a single mother, so she may have difficulties meeting financial needs. And I know that gym memberships are expensive. $45 a month it could build up over 12 months. And if she could save that money to provide education for her children or provide better groceries, that could make a huge difference.
Notice that one of the ways that her approach is to clarify the uncertainty. So asking yourself that question, what don't we know, can actually form part of the approach that you'd take to the scenario. So I think that's well done too.
In addition, the facility may be near her work.
All right, so she talks through the different options, moving forward.
This is not possible. I'm not going to do it at all. I would want to know why she's approached me and asked me for my help and see how I can help her in that sense. I think what becomes very important is upholding my integrity to my colleagues at a role model for.
All right, skipping forward.
Talk to me, so and yeah, so I'd wanna be a good friend to her and help her in this case.
Okay, so we are now at minute 449 of the video. You have about 8 minutes in total to answer this question, and your interviewer has pre-scripted follow-up questions to ask. So the interviewer might be actually scribbling on a notepad. This one is not, but a lot of times they're actually taking notes, which they will use to score you afterward. So you get a numerical score across several different criteria that vary by school, but she might be scoring you on how well you understand the issue, how well you took a position, how well you acknowledge the other side, those kinds of questions. So then she'll ask you a follow-up question, like this follow-up question is...
Do you have any ideas about what might happen to your friend if you do not respond positively to her request?
So she asked her a question that this applicant, already answered in her original answer. That's how good her original answer was. So again, pre-scripted. It's okay to repeat yourself if it's in response to a question like that. Yeah, and usually there'll be like 2 or 3 follow-up questions. Then you say goodbye, get up, shake the hands, and then you're off to the next station. So this is what an MMI looks like. And so let's see here. So it's not just like an ethics station or a knowledge or healthcare station. Sometimes there'll be an actor waiting for you. So imagine this particular, you get this card. So your company needs both you and a coworker, Roberto, a colleague from another branch of the company, who was gripped by fear of flying since one of his friends narrowly escaped being at the World Trade Center when it was destroyed. This example might be a little old. It is a real example, though, from a med school. To attend a critical business meeting in San Diego. You have just arrived to drive Roberto to the airport. So you walk into the room, and there's somebody waiting for you and says, "Hi, I'm Roberto." My question to you: what do you think Roberto is going to do? Like, why would they go through the trouble of hiring an actor for this situation? I'm gonna throw that in the chat. Like, what do you think Roberto is gonna say, do? How they're going to respond? All right. Might be physically avoidant to the person. Anybody else want to take a stab? Like back out of the meeting and express emotional distress? Yes, you're onto it. This person's going to freak out on you. They're going to have a panic attack in front of you. So that's why you hire an actor to do this, because otherwise you can get the information from asking it a different way, not from the expense and time of hiring an actor. So if there's an actor involved, their job is to emote. It's to bring the emotion, to try to make it feel realistic. That's weird. It's weird to be confronted in a situation. Like, unless you've had a long history of acting training, which most pre-meds haven't, you're going to have to talk this person down, acknowledge their fear, and guide them through the situation. So anyway, this is something that you will experience potentially, either virtually or in person, and that's what the acting approach looks like. So the approach is the same as other MMI approaches, which is study the card, decide what's being tested, consider how you would feel if you were in the other person's shoes. Like, I bet Roberto's feeling afraid and maybe a little irrational right now. So also think through what you don't know. And then, of course, you enter the room like a doctor. If you're meeting somebody for the first time and you know they're going to freak out on you, you might be tempted to jump right in, but it's your job to open the scenario. Like, how you feeling, Roberto? Like, I know there's a big flight coming up. Like, you doing okay? So you got to have some sort of small talk ready. And then generally it can be helpful by asking a question and then allowing the scene to unfold. So you don't want to try to overly control the situation. You want to react and respond, which means you got to be out of here and be present. So that's the tricky part. Yeah, I think I've shown you the kinds of things to expect from an MMI. I do want to talk to you about how to prepare for your interview. So what I thought would be helpful is to show you how we've prepared students for 2 decades at this point for their med school interview. And I'm going to actually show you the tools that we use, because I think you should use them too, or some version of them, whether or not you work with Passport or not. So here's how you prepare. Number 1, you need to practice your stories. These can be the same stories you just submitted in your secondaries and even your primary. But telling them out loud is very different than writing them. And depending on you and your struggles, you're going to struggle with some aspect of these stories. Why tell stories? Well, because they're more memorable than just words that answer a question. So you want to have a solid 10 core stories ready to go that can be launched to answer certain kinds of questions. All right. Number 2, you need to read up on current events. It is absolutely fair game to be asked about current ethical events, current medical knowledge, nothing technical, but like AI in medicine, those kinds of questions. It's fair game to be asked about the Iran war. It's fair game to be asked about whatever the heck the current event is that is got people talking, because they want med students who are informed citizens of the world. So you got to read up on that. You need to start researching the school. Starts with the IMSAR for sure. The med school's a webpage, its own webpage. Sometimes they have fairly decent social media presences that can give you information you can't find anywhere else. I think the deep research option on AI is a decent way to go too. So you're trying to understand, what is the school looking for and how do I match it? All right. And then this is really important. You need to do 3 realistic practice interviews out loud with another human or recorded. And then you have to watch it / get feedback. That is the most harrowing part of this. Single biggest mistake is not actually doing this out loud. It's doing a lot of prep without actually articulating your answers and then seeing how you sound. It's uncomfortable to watch yourself on camera. This is how you should prepare. So the way Passport does it is you have a coach who's dedicated to works with you. We do 3 hour-long mock interviews, and then we have all these resources that I want to show you in just a second. And then we coach people for panel interviews, regular interviews, MMIs, all that stuff. So again, if you would like to do a free meeting with us, please fill out this form. I'm going to put the URL here one more time. That's there for you to go ahead and fill out, or you can maybe see this QR code and fill it out that way. However you want to do it is fine. It's just ask you like, do you want to hear from us? And if you don't, it's all good. Let me show you though some of the other interesting things that I'm working on these days to help people prepare for the interview. So, okay, sharing different screen. Apologies. Here we go. So this is you're invited. So if you check this box in here, that's when you can you'll get sent a link to book your free session. All right. I think AI has a big role to play with helping you figure out what a med school is looking for and helping you personalize your fit. So this is the school fit tool that I've built. And what you do is you put in a personal statement, working activities, most meaningful, whatever. And what it'll then do is it'll help you generate core stories. So here's a sample personal statement from a student I got permission from. And you'll see it'll start by generating the core stories for that student. So a core story looks like there's certain key details. It'll show something about you. Every core story has a like a moral. Sorry. And then it will help you answer common questions like cultural humility or language access. Like you need to have a story about a meaningful patient encounter or interacting with someone from a different background. Then what's neat about this too is you can then see where the gaps are. Like, hey, this essay doesn't have anything about why the school. I mean, that's because it's a personal statement, not your secondary essays. But if you'd use all of your essays as part of the analysis, you can get a sense for, okay, how does this match up with what the school is looking for? And then from what you know about the school, you can either get a mission fit, or here's where you can do interview prep. So like, let's say we want to get a mission fit with the David Geffen School of Medicine. So using the core stories, it says, all right, here are the questions that you might likely be asked by UCLA. Now, so UCLA does the traditional interview, not MMI. And eventually it'll generate the combination of the questions that the UCLA might ask, and then it'll relate it to the core stories that the student has uploaded. Yeah, so finish this sentence with something you've actually worked on. Outstanding physician, and then tell us what you've done toward it. You'll notice that's the same verbiage as the secondary question that UCLA asks. Name a specific health disparity you want to address, a concrete one not helping the underserved, and what drew you to it. So again, that's something that is part of the core mission of UCLA. So it roughly will show you like, hey, this is what the school is looking for. And then it asks you questions. And then below each one from your core stories, it says, hey, here's some of the stories, some evidence from what you've uploaded for that. So again, I worked really hard on this. It's only for use right now internally at Passport, like with our students, but you can do something similar. I really think you can if you're enterprising. But this is what you're trying to do, is thinking about it like, all right, what is the med school likely to ask me based on what this med school cares about? And then how do I stack up against that school? All right. I also wanted to show you this interview tool. So, boy, speaking of watching yourself on camera, this is called Big Interview. I want to say you can get a subscription to it for like $20 a month, something like that. We give this to our students so that they have to videotape themselves when they do interviews. So this won't work right now because my webcam is in use, but this is the traditional interview number 2 that I created. These are the kinds of questions that you might get in a typical med school interview. You get to record yourself for up to 3 minutes, and then of course you get to watch yourself looking like a fool, at least at first. But ideally, you get better over time. Now, Big Interview also offers AI feedback on your performance, and ooh, it is iffy. I don't know, y'all. I wouldn't do that part. So whether or not you buy Big Interview, I think you should record yourself and watch yourself, and then maybe show it to somebody who's not your mom, who can give you honest feedback about how you did. You'll notice when you watch yourself the verbal tics. You'll notice your body language. You'll notice where you did or didn't answer the question. But that's precisely the point. Is it forces you to really think through your responses and try to improve. So this is what I mean by at least 3 full mock interviews, whether that's traditional or regular. And this tool is available for the world. This is how I've personalized it for the students that we work with. But I hope that's useful to you. Okay. Thank you all for letting me talk for so long. I hope this was useful to you. I would be happy to stick around to answer questions. I haven't noticed any come through on the chat just yet, but if we do have a few minutes left. Who's got them?
Thank you very much for doing this. I'm going to stop the recording, but please feel free to put your questions in the chat for Rob, okay?
You can also come on camera if you really want to. My pleasure. Yeah. All righty. Let's see if you want to unmute. Ayushi, you wanna